Happy Wednesday night, everybody. It's Meredith from Backyard Caring Program. I'm up at the Grow Garden on a beautiful Wednesday night. It is sunny, it is hot, not too hot, not too bad, not very windy up here at the Grow Garden. It looks absolutely amazing. I might even put some sunglasses on. Tonight we are talking about Calendula, whatever you like to call it. And the reason we're at the Grow Garden is because I have some up here that I grow. We grow a fair bit up here. It does really, really well. So I'm going to show you some of the end results of what I'm going to do with my calendula, and then kind of take you over to the patch and how it looks and how it grows, and maybe that's something you'd want to do next year. And the Guelph Seed Library is definitely going to have a lot of seeds of this plant because I have a lot to donate, and we have quite a bit growing here. So calendula is also known as pot marigold. It has a couple other names. It's kind of reminiscent of a daisy. It's an annual, so that means that you have to plant it every year from seed. I would actually almost call it like a biennial because it self-seeds, but it's like a self-seeding annual. Does really well in warm climates, so it's not going to survive the winter. You'll have to start fresh every year. Wherever you end up growing it, the seeds will fall and probably propagate on their own. So that's something to keep in mind. It does spread around. But what I usually like to do is grow it in certain places that I know it's not going to get out of control. And then in the spring, I just kind of pluck where I don't want them to grow and let the rest thrive. So that's basically all there is to it. It's a very simple plant. We'll head out to the patch in a second. I've already picked a whole bunch from the more difficult side of the patch to reach. Just figured I would do that. It is very sticky. It has kind of like a piney, sweet, almost like definitely an herbal scent to it with the green still on it. They come in every color imaginable, and we're going to see that more in the patch. But they come in a lot of different combinations of colors, from yellow to like stripy orange to more deep orange, neon orange, all different colors, shapes, basically the same size. I'm going to show you some of the seed pods, and the petals is what we want. The whole plant itself has a lot of medicinal benefits, aromatic benefits, but the petals do as well. And as I was picking these, I definitely noticed there was some oil, kind of resiny stuff on my hands from picking them. So it's definitely a very oily, cool plant. It just smells really fresh. So I picked all of these. This is quite a bit. It took a huge pot just to get this much petals. I have some of those dehydrated packs in here just to keep it nice and dry while I wait to fill up with more petals. But this is some finished product, which is just the petals. And what I do is I take the flowers that I harvest and I put them inside a dehydrator. You can do this on almost like a window screen outside when it's super sunny. It just takes a little longer, but I do that for a couple of days. I just dry them up till they're completely dry. You do not want any kind of moisture. These shrivel up, and all you have to do is pluck the petals off and stick them inside the jar. Calendula has been used to dye foods since the medieval ages, essentially. That's primarily what it's used for. You can make teas, you can make things more yellowy orange. I know that it was used as an additive in butters back in the day to make them more yellow looking, things like that. So there's those uses. What I plan to do is I'm going to take some cold pressed olive oil that I picked out on clearance, which is just a really high quality cold pressed virgin olive oil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that over top of my petals about as much as I can. The ratio is kind of 3 parts oil, maybe 1 part oil, 3 parts calendula. Yeah, it's more calendula than oil, but you want to fill them completely over, and then you let that in the sun, a warm spot, for a couple of weeks, up to 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Takes a long time, but then you end up with calendula oil, which is usually a really beautiful kind of orange color. You can dye yarn, yeah, it's been used in like dyers' gardens and for dyeing purposes, foods, clothing, fibers, I'm sure, all sorts of things for centuries. And it has good staying power. These are a couple weeks old, and they're just as bright and colorful as the actual flowers themselves. So they definitely do not wilt down when they are being processed. So this is a busy road, like that goes right here. It's a little busy tonight with some big trucks, so I apologize for that sound. But I'm going to turn the camera around, give a little mini tour of what's going on in the garden right now, and make our way over to the calendula patch, and I'll show you what I have going on over there and how to harvest some more. And then that'll be it for tonight. But I just wanted to show how I process calendula and what it's used for. Yeah, it is great for the skin. So what I plan to do with my calendula oil, with olive oil I should say, is to make actually a salve product that is kind of like a Vaseline type thing, like a salve. You add it to the oil, and then you add the oil to whatever base product you want to use as your salve or your lotion. So it's kind of like an olive oil calendula lotion, and basically it's an antibacterial, antifungal, natural collagen boosting plant. So if you put it on a cut, a scrape, maybe even like a little burn or any kind of irritation, skin irritation, as long as it's clean beforehand, you don't ever want to put something on that's going to trap pain inside, stuff like that. But it has some healing qualities to it because of its antifungal and antibacterial properties. So yeah, I think the same goes for when you make it into a little tea. So it's got a lot of multi-uses. So let me just turn this camera around. The garden is looking super duper lush and almost like claustrophobic right now. I haven't decided on a recipe just yet for myself, but I do know that it's going to take a couple weeks to make the oil and make sure the oil is processed properly. So I'll definitely be coming back to make my salve recipe and posting that once my oil is done. But I think it's going to depend on if I can get some local beeswax. I would prefer to keep it local products only. But yeah, the garden is looking wild. I'm about 5'3", and I'd say most of the plants around are that height, if not taller tonight. So we are getting there. So this is my calendula patch. It was looking a little bit crazier when I had not picked everything from the back there, but I do have some dill growing in here as well. You can use in terms of oils that you can use to make calendula oil, I've seen grapeseed oil, oils that are approved for use on and with the skin, or so I wouldn't recommend like a vegetable oil, for example. Other oils that would work would be like what do you call it, jojoba oil. I figured that Tri-City, he would have some, Mike would have some, but it's a hot commodity, beeswax, so it might be hard to find. But yeah, you want to use an oil that is able to be used on skin. Olive oil, I think, would be your more inexpensive in terms of the quality you can get right off the shelf. But a lot of these have gone to seed because I have been picking them for a couple weeks now. I don't know, like the thing with the process that you're doing, processing the petals in the oil, it has to be a type of oil that is liquid at room temperature, basically. So as long as the coconut oil, maybe like a unrefined, the refined coconut oil, like a clear, would work really well. But yeah, this plant is crazy. I've grown it in this plot for 2 years now, and it kind of just shifted over, and I just decided, okay, you're going to grow in this row, and I kind of sequestered it that direction. But you can see I've got a bunch of different colors, and then there's a bunch of like seed heads that are already dropping seeds, so I'm gonna have to come back and deal with that. But the seeds come in all sorts of funky shapes and colors. You never know what you're gonna get in terms of like these little curls that are created by the seeds, and those basically just fall out as they dry. This didn't take almost anything. I don't know if this is where I want them next year, but basically they just fall off and they don't go very far, they don't blow in the wind, and they will come back next year in full force. So I'm hoping to collect a lot of the seed to donate to the seed library. But yeah, you can kind of see there's a different color mix, like a lighter one there with like even a lighter center, a darker one. There's a really cool one over here that has like more fluffy petals and kind of drips of red on the edges, more peachy colored ones. There's all sorts here, and they all work the same. Oh, that one's really pretty. Very unique mix. It's an annual, so Calendula is an annual, so you do have to start the seeds every year. Yeah, but they absolutely seed themselves. Once you get a bit of seed, you're off to the races. So we will have some available at the Guelph Seed Library. The main thing in terms of maintenance with this plant is that they drop the seeds where they are, maybe just like the laneway over. They might end up dropping a lot of seeds like in between the pathways here, and I will just have to cut them back or pluck them back, almost like weed them back into this shape to make sure they're growing here. Now, what I like to do in terms of harvesting, I like to just get the head. And what's cool about this plant is we've got lots of other buds in here ready to flower again. So I always take just pinch those flowers off. I take every single one that I can every time I'm out here. And then I let it reflower and just keep coming on and on and on, and that'll train the plant to produce more flowers as the season progresses. It does keep going until frost. I find it does kind of slow down completely. It is a more like delicate plant. There's one growing, I almost like knocked it over. There's one that's self-seeded over here, and it's laying down. You can kind of see what it looks like before it starts flowering, but it's very like a wet plant. Like if you step on this, it snaps, it's done. It's not a very rigorous plant in that sense. So definitely kind of delicate care. You can easily damage these plants, which, you know, it's nice for cleanup. These are Bachelor Buttons, which is also an edible flower, but doesn't have quite the same medicinal properties. This is the other thing you can do with Calendula if you want to impress your friends during a brunch or anything like that. You can just harvest some from your backyard, pluck the petals while they're fresh, which is pretty straightforward, and then sprinkle that on your eggs or your toast or on top of jam or on top of scones or whatever it is you like. The petals are completely edible raw as well, and that same goes for Bachelor Button. Just kind of fun and cute to use if you want to do edible flowers, and they're basically tasteless, I would say. So yeah, that's the Calendula patch and my plans for making a salve. And I'm just gonna keep harvesting and save as much as I can to make some various preserved products in the garden, and a bunch of seeds coming up. Like this seed head is definitely ready to be harvested, so I will be taking that. And yeah, that's that plant. It is super easy. I definitely recommend it. One pack of seeds will get you a really long way. Maybe not quite this large of a plot, but might not be what you want to do. But you really don't need that many to, at least create a small amount of oil, and the oil should go a long way, so I'm not really sure. So what I recommend in terms of once you've harvested them, it is really tedious to start pedaling them when they are wet. So I recommend keeping them in their flower head like this and then sticking them in the dehydrator. That is because they are kind of sticky, and I feel like your hands will just get super, super gunked up with the resin of the plant. So what I would say is just put them whole in the dehydrated, or separate it out on a sheet or some kind of screen to dry them out in the sun, but you want to leave them whole. And once they're dry, it's super easy to pull off all of the petals in one quick go. Let me see if I can find kind of a dried one on the plant, so I can kind of show you what I mean. Like this is a flower that's a little older. It's kind of dry. Well, maybe it's just a weird shape. I've got some that are really weirdly shaped here, but before they end up looking like this, before they look like this, the petals kind of wilt away. Basically, when you process it yourself using a dehydrator, the flowers had a lot of bugs. Yeah, I wouldn't separate it. Like I wouldn't, like these came off pretty easy, but then you're putting this in your dehydrator, and it's gonna be really hard to pick this off of the sheet and the side and clean up your dehydrator. So I would say leave it intact together like this, just like that, inside your dehydrator. And then when it's all dried up, you just kind of gather the petals in your fingers like if they were fresh. Obviously they'll be a little smaller, and you just prick them off and put them into the container. Now, like any plant, you definitely, I like keeping them whole as well for this reason of like pests and dirt and things, and you don't like collect things inside the petals. I would leave them whole like this, and then if there's any bugs or anything on this, it's just going to dry off, and then you're just going to pluck those clean petals straight off. So if you have a lot of bugs, I can definitely recommend using some dish soap, various things as like a deterrent for those bugs. It just depends on the bug itself, and that's kind of a garden issue. The other thing with calendula is it is technically like a really good interspacing crop to have around. I definitely would rather have the bugs chew on my calendula rather than, you know, valuable things like lettuce or anything in the broccoli, kale, lettuce family. I'd rather them chew on the calendula just so that they're distracted. But I haven't had any issues with mine, but if you do have some chewing going on, then you might need to use some dish soap or some diatomaceous earth or something to eliminate the pests, and then also focus on the issue in the garden that's bringing them there. But not too many more to harvest tonight. I did a pretty good job and got most of them, but I will literally pick anything with color on it while I'm here, because it'll throw out new flowers every single day of the season if it's nice. It is the type of plant, just like a sunflower, that follows the sun. So if you have an overcast day, you'll probably notice that a lot of the flowers are kind of like this. They're kind of closed up, but when it's really bright and sunny, they are fully open. Pollinators love them, so that's another good reason to have them around. Yeah, I don't know if you have any other questions about calendula. I picked down here. That's why there's an absence of flowers, but I do have, like I mentioned before, some dill kind of growing in between. There's also some basil, but it really outgrew it, and then I put some nasturtiums in here as well, but they also outgrew them. They're just monstrous. I'd say they're a couple inches taller than normal this year at this point in the summer. But yeah, I picked as many as I think I can for tonight. And in terms of the varieties that I grow, I've collected calendula seeds from just about every single seed company that you've ever heard of, and I just combine the seeds every year and use a combination of save seed, or if there's a variety that I don't have that's maybe like double flowers or more of a pastel, I just add that to the group. So I like to keep the genetics of my calendula nice and different, just so I have some color variety. They don't do amazing in terms of cut flowers. They are more on like the wilty, daisy, wildflower side. Although it works, it's just they're definitely not designed to be a cut flower. They're designed for this. And I don't know, it has just a really nice pine, like herbal pine scent to it, with a little bit of floral, a little bit of lemon balm scent, but that's kind of the general smell I'm getting from these plants. And I'm gonna go around and collect a bunch of seeds in a big glass jar and maybe put some rice in there just to help things dry out. You definitely don't want to put seeds in the dehydrator because they will ultimately be too dry. But there are some seeds, again, just to kind of show you. This is from one flower, and you can kind of see the diversity of shapes and sizes of seeds, and they are all usually like this, with like this spiky little C shape. That they're super cool. A little bit tricky to package because I find that they are kind of sharp and they stab out, but yeah. Just gonna throw the seed back down there and they will come up in between. I definitely want some seed from this area. There was a really cool looking, these like darker ones that are coming up. So, but they're all mixed, of course, so you never really know what you're gonna get. Another good reason to keep the genetics kind of mixed up and interesting is you get all these different types of flower combos, colors, constantly crossbreeding. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it alone for tonight, and that's all I need to do another batch of drying. And yeah, if I were to do the same thing to these really awesome blue Bachelor Buttons, they would actually fade in the drying process. So there's something in the Calendula that prevents that color from fading away, which is really awesome. Sometimes I get a lot more of the plant than I want when I'm picking the flowers, and I don't know, just sometimes that happens. And they are definitely very sticky. Like you're almost always going to have petals like stuck to your fingers. But yeah, there's my old dog who joins me out in the garden. And for the live streams, usually he's being a good boy. He wants to go home. He doesn't understand what we're doing. Yeah, there's another little kind of tour of the garden before we say goodbye. Some super tall beans coming along here. We do have Japanese beetle problem, like usual here, but they're not too bad this year. I think the moisture has been really good for keeping that kind of thing down. Yeah, there's some beautiful sunflowers and the sunset up at the Grow Garden. And if you don't know where we are, because I don't think I actually introduced it, we are at the Grow Community Garden, which is located in Martin, just about 5 minutes north of Guelph. We're a community garden that is supported by the Guelph Tool Library, and everyone has different plots. This is purple plot here, and they manage their own gardens, and we donate the extra produce to emergency food pantries in town. So yeah, we've got about, how many plots do we have? 10 or 11 plots, gardens, and then a whole bunch of donation area. And yeah, it is just wildly, I wouldn't say overgrown, but it's definitely lush this year. We don't usually have this much help watering from nature. But yeah, this is some lettuce gone to seed, that big tall red plants and amaranth, which is really cool. So yeah, there's lots to see, and I will definitely be live streaming back here again just to show what is going on. Some really lovely nasturtiums over here. Also edible plant, peppery taste, but you cannot dry them. There's no real use to that. So Tomatillos looking great and big. It's a great alternative to tomatoes if you have a lot of issues with pests or blight. They do not get nearly as much as tomatoes. But of course you can really only make stewed things because you do have to cook tomatillo in order to eat it. But yeah, this is the community garden. We have a shelter area, and they grow a lot of calendula here. So I hope everybody has a really good night, and I will tune back in when I make myself, probably in a couple of weeks. When I say that, maybe a month and a half. Yeah, have a great night, gardening people. I will see you next Wednesday. Don't know what we're going to be talking about just yet or doing, but it'll be something in the garden. So if you like that kind of content, or you know someone who does, yes, tomatillos are great for Mexican salsa. 100% recommend making like a salsa verde out of them. But yeah, if you know somebody who likes gardening, wants to join in on these live streams and check them out, that would be really great, because I love when you guys are live and actually asking me questions and I can engage. Otherwise, we'll be hoping to have some in-person workshops soon, because we can. And I miss people, and I miss being out in the garden and showing things hands-on. So I will see you. What are the red flowers? Those are pole beans, scarlet runner pole beans. Hummingbirds love them, butterflies love them, and you get full-on green beans as well. So yeah, that's what those are. I love the questions. I love it. Maybe I'll be back here next week and we can do another Q&A. There's a lot of stuff here. Like, it's huge. Last week we did a tour, so if you want to check out that video, I definitely recommend. That was the last one we did last week. And the tour takes over half an hour because it's such a big garden. We're almost like over an acre here. So it takes a while to show you everything. But there is a little bit of something everywhere, with over 15 gardeners, the seed library projects, people growing their own food everywhere. The garden is absolutely packed, so there's always lots going on. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will